I want you to just give a nice round of applause to Linda, who came out all the way from New York to see us and give us some good insight on what about the music business and some of these integral facts that help you make money and help you sustain your career. So Linda, thank you.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate you inviting me here. I'm really excited to meet your students and see what you guys have going on here. It looks very exciting so far. So I have a long history in the music business. I've worked in the business for about almost 30 years. I started out as a musician, as a singer. I went to Berklee College of Music and was starting my professional music career when I landed a job in New York City at SESAC, the Performing Rights Organization. And I kind of took it as a day job, thinking I would sing it at night. And I sang and worked full time for about 2 years until it just became, having two jobs was too much. And I also started to fall in love with the idea of the music industry. And I've immersed myself in the business ever since then and got involved in a number of different organizations, one of which is the Recording Academy, which is how I met David Ivory. And we'll talk about networking a little bit later on, but the importance of networking and the importance of getting yourself immersed and involved in the music industry through clubs and organizations is really a great and key way for you to network and build your network of people and sort of build your future. So right now, I worked at SESAC for 27 years, if you can believe that. And I left a couple of years ago, and now I'm a music consultant. I work with all different types of companies. I curate conferences. I teach. I also teach at Rider University, and I do a lot of publishing administration. That's really where my expertise lies, is in the music publishing area. But what's very interesting about working for a performing rights organization like ASCAP, BMI, SESAC, GMR, those are the 4 U.S. performing rights organizations. What's interesting about working at a PRO is that you really have a 360 view of the music industry, because you meet everyone in the industry and you're sort of a diplomat. You work with every different part of the industry. So I have a really vast view of the business and experience in all different areas. And I'd like to share that with you today, because I would like to go over with you what I call the wheel of fortune of the music industry, and share with you the many different roles that are in the business that you could even maybe be inspired to pursue. You're going to school here and learning the technical stuff, which is amazing. And you'll see as we go further on this lecture how that plays such a nice ground. It's like a nice ground field for you to begin your career. But it's also just, you'll see how you could morph your career into a number of different ways. So I gave you guys a piece of blank paper. I want you to grab your paper and I want you to draw a big, huge circle like this. A big, huge circle like this. Okay, this is the wheel. You're going to create your wheel. I'm going to attach this thing to myself. It doesn't matter what it looks like. I'm not judging anybody. And in the center, I want you to put another circle, which is your artist. Another circle in the beginning of it. Almost looks like a record. And this is going to be your artist. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put spokes all around it. And we're going to fill up these spokes with the different roles and jobs, careers in the music industry. So what is at the center of this is the artist. The artist really is the lifeblood of the music industry. If you look at all these roles and these responsibilities throughout the business, they all stem from the artist. It's the artist who's the commodity in our business. We're talking about the music business. What's the music business? It's selling music. That's how we make money. We sell music. And who is the vehicle? The artist. The artist is your vehicle. So your artist is really the most important player in the music industry, because that's really where all of this tech stuff, everything funnels into the artist, and the music goes out into the world through the vehicle of the artist. And that's why the artist is such an important player. Well, let's talk about an artist just for a second. And I like to think in big terms. I mean, there's a million different types of artists, that you've got singer-songwriters out there that have decent careers. You could have an amazing career and not even be a household name, and have a really make a decent living and a decent livelihood. And that's all possible. You know, all of this, anything is possible. Is particularly in today's world with online social media and online distribution. You could really create music out of your basement and really have a life and actually monetize your music and make a living from your basement, and no one would even know who you were, really. But I'm going to talk more specifically about the superstars, because it's a better model for you to see the big picture, and then you can funnel it down to like the independent artist. But in the big picture world, if you had all the money in the world, you would be creating superstars. And let's talk about a superstar. What is a superstar? What makes a superstar? Well, someone with amazing talent, right? What else?
A lot of sales.
A lot of sales, success. Someone who, but like artistically, you know, a superstar is like somebody who you can't get your eyes off of them. You know, you ever flip the channels in the middle of the night? I'm sure you never do that. I do it way too much. But all of a sudden you run across an artist or a performance and you're like, whoa, what is that? What makes a superstar? Someone who's incredibly talented, who's got the it factor. And I'm sure you've seen those before. You've had bands that you've loved, and you've met the singer, maybe the main person of the band. And there's something about them that they have that's a little bit different than everybody else. They have that it factor. They have that confidence, that assurance, that incredible talent. A superstar. You know, some famous music executives, I met this one famous music executive. He's now, unfortunately, he's infamous. But he was the head of Republic Records, which was the #1 record label for years. They have all the big superstars. And we had him speak at a Recording Academy event recently. And he said, you know, superstar, and he works with superstars. He said, superstars are born. They're not made. They're born. And the majority of the artists that he worked with all started their careers at a very young age. And if you really look at a lot of the big, I'm talking superstars in the pop world, you know, they all started very young. Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, I mean, you look back and they started their careers very young. There's something about that youth factor, that getting that it factor, getting that talent. There's something a little bit different about these superstars. A lot of them start their careers very young. That is a common thing that we know in our business. So let's pretend like we have this superstar in our artist, and you can, you know, put a little smiley face on them or a sad face, whoever they are. I love a superstar who delivers the unexpected, who challenges us, who can, you know, sort of challenges our preconceptions of what we think their next record's going to be, and they turn around and they put out something different, but they have the strength and the stamina and the success behind them that they're able to continue to, like, produce music again and again. So, who are some of your favorite artists?
The Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters. Favorite artists?
J. Cole.
J. Cole.
Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar. Superstar right now. Very, very much so. Just got a Pulitzer Prize.
Heard about that. Yeah.
You know, whoever you think. Well, let me tell you. Let's talk about who they've got in their on their team. The first of which, the first spoke that you're going to fill out at the top of the heap, and then I don't care where you put them, but I believe it to be your personal manager. Your personal manager is the person who, first of all, you want to have a good relationship with this person. You want to like them because you're going to be working a lot with them. You want them to have the same sort of values as you do. Or if you don't have good values, have someone that does have good values. Someone that's respected in the business, that has a really good overview of the industry and who's got experience. You know, and when you're starting out in your career, you don't always have someone with a lot of experience, and that's fine. But when you get to be the superstar, you need a manager who can really represent you, who's got experience and who's amazing, who's got contacts everywhere, who knows how to negotiate, who knows how to find the right lawyers for you, who knows how to find the right agents for you, who knows how to find the right business managers for you. And those are your three other components. Your attorney. An attorney is invaluable. You need an attorney who's going to be right there in your pocket, who's looking out for your best interests as an artist. So the attorney is the second spoke. Your attorney. They oversee all your contracts. They negotiate the contract with your lawyer, with your manager, I mean. So you need to have your own personal attorney. A business manager is an important player in your career as well. And your business manager comes around when you start to get money. And what they do is they collect all your money. So all your income comes care of the business manager. And they're generally a CPA. A unique thing about business managers is that they don't all have to be licensed. And sometimes a business manager can just put a shackle out in front of his door and say, I'm a business manager. You want to make sure that you get a really reputable business manager because they're handling your money. And they also can be involved in investing money for you, making good investments. But the big thing is they're tracking your royalties, and they're looking at your royalty statements, and they're making sure that you're being paid properly. And they look out for you. So a good business manager is an invaluable part of your team. And then you have the agent. An agent is, there's a couple of different types of agents. There's your booking agent, which, booking agents are on all levels of the music business. You have a booking agent who finds the gigs for you and negotiates the fees for you and, maps out a tour for you. That's a very important role. There's also a talent agent when you're a big superstar, like Bruno Mars. The talent agent is getting you on television shows, booking you on, late night shows, maybe getting you in a commercial, that kind of thing, an agent. The artist doesn't have so much interaction with the agent. The agent really works very closely with your personal manager. Again, the reason why you need your personal manager to be right up your, alley, like someone that you really trust, and you trust their opinion, you trust the decisions that they make. Your manager, remember, keeps 15 to 20% of your gross income. So everything you bring in the door, they're getting a cut of that. So sometimes managers make decisions for their own pocket. That's been done before too. So those are the most important parts, I think, of the core part of building your team out. Now let's talk about some of the most important parts. There's two main parts of the business, I think, that are most important in an artist's career, and that's your record label, and that's the music publishing side of things. But let's talk about the record label. Do you know how many major record labels there are in our business? There's three. There's three major record labels in our industry. It used to be much bigger, but they've consolidated through the years. They've consolidated, and they have major distribution. That's what makes them major. It's Warner, it's Sony, and Universal. Warner, Sony, and Universal, the big three we call them. Warner, Sony, and Universal. And there's a lot of subsidiaries through those companies. Like, popular producers, for example, will have a deal with these labels. They'll be able to put their music out there. They'll say they're with Sony. They're working independently. They could be working in a studio like this, but they run their music through the Sony system and have Sony support. That's like a subsidiary record label. The most important thing about your record label is that they're the ones that are actually getting your music out there. They're the ones who are doing all the work behind the actual product, which is a record, a CD, or in today's world, a stream. So you want to have a decent label. You want to love who your record label is. And if you're a superstar, you've had your attorney negotiate a really sweet deal for yourself, and you're happy with your record label. So let's talk about just a little bit of the players in a record label. Of course, there's the CEO who runs the daily operation of the record label, the president, and it's really their vision of how they incorporate all the marketing dollars to market and sell the artist, the product, the money. There's the ever popular role of the A&R person. Does anyone know what A&R stands for?
Artist and repertoire.
Exactly, artist and repertoire. It used to be back in the days when musicians or singers or artists, they didn't write their own songs. So they relied on the record label to actually find the songs for them. That's where this term artist and repertoire began, was through, back in those days. Nowadays, many times artists also write their own songs. But we still use the word A&R. And for some reason, like the language is A&Rs. People say my A&Rs, but that's I guess okay. I always found it like not correct English, but people say A&Rs. We're going to go out and there's going to be some A&Rs there. I guess that means A&R people. But you have vice presidents, directors, managers, and a talent scout. Talent scout is a great way to kind of get in. You get as there as a scout. They're the ones that are scouting talent. They're the ones that are listening to music. They're the ones that are going out to clubs at night, who are scouring the internet for new music. These are the people that are the music lovers, the tastemakers. A&R, it's also one of the most coveted jobs in the business. A&R scouts and A&R managers, A&R vice presidents, whatever, they're all sort of the same kind of role, just elevated. But they're the ones that really understand the music. And I'll tell you, having a studio background is really key, because one of the major roles that an A&R person does for the artist, they're the liaison to the art. They're the ones that signed the artist. They're the ones that went out and saw them at the club and said, oh my God, they've got it. I want to bring them into my manager. So they bring them into their manager. They're like, you've got to sign him. You've got to sign him. And the manager says, let me go out and see them. They go out and see them. They go, oh, I agree. They have it. Let's get them. We'll bring them in. We got to go to the president of the company and get his okay. Will he give them a $1 million advance? And then the president says, well, let me go out and see him. I guess this is the A&Rs. So the A&Rs are coming to see him. And if the president of the company agrees and he wants to give them a big, huge advance, they'll sign them. But it's the A&R guy that really oversees the day-to-day operation of the artist and how he communicates within the record label. And one of those things is booking the studio. A big part of it is when they start to get down to production, the A&R guy has to know all the rules of the studio, because he might hire the specific producer for the artist. Definitely, he's going to hire the producer. If he doesn't love the sound of the songs, he might say, you know what, I need you to collaborate with, Joe Schmo Songwriter over here, because they've got this hot sound now. I want you to work with him in the studio. I'm going to book you in the studio, and I want you to work 3 days with this writer and see if you guys can create some hits. And he might, or she might, come into the studio and oversee the session. And they might say, you know what, let's get that mix engineer that's really hot right now. Let's get that mixer to mix this because we want to have that sound on it. So the A&R person really knows everybody. And you got to know all these things. You got to know what this board means. And you might be able to, so that you can communicate with the engineer even. And like the real seasoned A&R people, like the Pete Gambargs of Atlantic Records, for example, they're also seasoned music people. They've been in the studio a long time. They know that sound that they're looking for. They listen to radio all the time. They know what the hot sounds are. And listening to radio, by the way, is a key thing to do, because if you're going into commercial viable music, if you're looking for that career, you need to know who the hot artists are, and you need to recognize the sounds. Like, is a hi-hat really big right now? Is a bass drum really a big hot thing right now? Listening to the trends of music is so key. You don't want to be behind the times. You want to deliver the music that's hot right now if you're trying to deliver to commercial radio. And commercial radio today means commercial streaming on Spotify, Pandora, etc. You want to deliver the hottest sounds. And that's why having, this technical background is really a very important part. You can get started in A&R as like a college rep, like a college radio rep. There's like a campus concert promoter jobs that you can get, assistants in recording studios. These are all great backgrounds for being an A&R person. And the other thing is listening to music, identifying all the key players. When you listen to music, I teach a class at Rider University. And one of the things that we do throughout the semester is we listen to the number one songs and we dissect them. And you can dissect them too. Listening to the number one songs, and just Google it. You can keep digging. Go to allmusic.com and dig deep and see who's the songwriter, who's the producer, who's the songwriters. There's usually many of them. Who are the music publishers? Keep digging. Go to ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC. Learn who these people are, because the more that you're able to rattle off names, the more attractive you're going to be to a record label. They want to know that you know your stuff. So what else is involved in a record label? Well, there's the marketing department. That's key, right? They're the ones that create a plan. They coordinate the promotion, the sales, the publicity. The head of marketing develops that plan, but they have a whole slew of people underneath them. There's the creative services department, which is the art department. It also involves the oversees the album covers, the ads, and the posters, but also the styling. A stylist is another interesting job and role in the business. The person who actually says, you know what, I'm going to put these two little things together and I want you to wear this instead of that. This is going to make you have a unique look about you. Did anybody ever watch American Idol? In the early days, what I loved about that show was, especially in the early days, you would see the artists come out and they would be wearing, jeans and, what they thought was a cute blouse. But then as the season went on and they started to bring in those big stylists to create a look for these people, it was amazing how it would just morph the confidence in the artist, but also the look, and created a really cool look. So the importance of a stylist is not to be underestimated. And of course, there's the promotion team. Promotions in record labels is a really interesting, cool, key job. And it's cool too. It takes a certain amount of savvy and smarts and wheeling and dealing to try to get radio promoters all over the country to play your music. Record promotion is key. And the artist, you want that artist to be in good cahoots with that promotion team as well. Your sales team is the one that's dealing with all the digital sales, who's dealing with the physical sales. The publicity team, huge, getting the publicity out for your record, getting you in articles, getting you newspaper articles, whenever you're touring, any backup stuff, getting you interviewed in blogs. Blogs are such an important place to get some publicity. Artists also have their own publicist too. Sometimes there's two publicists. You have your own personal publicist to deal with as an artist, and then the record label will have for the product, their publicist for the product. And then they have social media teams, of course, that all they do is scour social media and they plant, things about you online to just build your socials. It's all about building social content, as you know. There's a film and television and sync department to synchronize your music and your music into films and television. Of course, there's a legal team. The record labels have big legal teams. They have a business affairs team that does all the administration, the licensing, IT, human resources. And then there's distribution, and that is the physical, distributing the actual product to the stores or digitally online now. With distribution, there's also sales, label relations, a warehouse staff, financing, accounting, royalties. I'm just sharing all this with you to show that there's a lot of jobs in a record label. I mean, it doesn't have to just be the A&R guy. It could be the A&Rs. It could be, the warehouse managing director. There's 100 different things that you could do at a record label. So what's the difference between a major and independent? So a major label, I kind of explained it. You've got your president, and you've got your little vice presidents, and your marketing department, all these different departments sort of siloed down. Well, an independent label is kind of flat because there's a lot less people working there. And they wear a lot of hats. So you might have, the president could also be the head of A&R. And in a lot of cases it is. The president is the one, it's their baby. This record label is their sound, their passion, their music that they love. It's not uncommon to have that. And then you might have a person that does the royalties but also does the publishing. It's a much smaller situation. But they can also get major label distribution, or sometimes they do their own distribution. But the key thing is the distribution factor and the number of employees. And again, there's only 3 major record labels now. So let's talk about music publishing. This is my passion. I love the music publishing world. It's something I spent many, many years in. I think that your major publishers are generally associated with a major record label. Like Warner, Sony, Universal. And then you have large independents that are not affiliated with a major, such as Cobalt Music or BMG. And then you have your smaller independent publishing companies, which are really doing great work in New York City. Companies like Songs Music, Spirit Music, Downtown, Roundhill. These are very popular independent publishing companies. And then last but not least, and very importantly, is your self-published songwriters. So if you're a songwriter and you write a song, and to be honest with you, it's not that easy to get a publisher. I mean, it's kind of competitive. So if you can't get a publisher, which in most cases you can't until you're a superstar, you publish yourself. I mean, the copyright law says anyway, once you write a song, it's published under your name anyways. You're the publisher until you assign it over to somebody else. So you're basically your own publisher. So if you're going to do that, you may as well set yourself up. Set yourself up. If you're writing songs and you're putting them out there, join a performing rights organization, ASCAP, BMI, SESAC, or GMR. Truth is, you can only join ASCAP and BMI. SESAC and GMR are private. So you join ASCAP or BMI and you set up your own publishing company and get yourself into business. That's how you get started. So if you're a self-published songwriter, and many people do this, in order to be a self-published songwriter and be successful, you have to know what you're doing. It's one thing to say you are something, but then to actually do it is a whole other story. But there's a lot of ways you can learn about music publishing. And then, of course, there's educational publishers. Those are the ones that put out sheet music. So I'll just talk a little bit about the departments of a music publishing company to give you ideas on potential roles for yourself. Creative services, which is the most interesting. I'm sure most of you would love that. That's basically kind of like the A&R of the publishing world. But you're out there looking for songwriters. Instead of artists, you're looking for songwriters. And you're dealing with the songwriters. And your role is not just to sign a songwriter, but then to create business for them. And that is by setting them up with other songwriters, introducing them to other publishers, well, you could introduce them to other publishers with the hopes of them introducing you to their writers, but introducing them to producers. Having a really wide network of contacts so that you can plug your songwriter into these different situations. A lot of times they write in the studio, so getting them down to the studio so that they are, writing and being involved creatively in the recording studio. You want to get your writer involved in everything creatively that you possibly can with the hopes of them writing a hit song. So then they've got a big film and television department. That's a key thing in music publishing, is having a film and TV department where they try to pitch your songs to film projects and television shows. I mean, that's a real area of strength in a publishing company, and it takes a real sense of expertise to be able to do those placements, to know all the music supervisors. That's another role, music supervision. That's the person who oversees all the music that goes into a film. Very interesting role. Are you putting these down on your spokes? Music supervision, that's another great role. The licensing department, they're the ones that issue all the mechanical licenses and the sync licenses, and they negotiate the fees. They do a lot of research. They do all the lyric samples. If there's a sample, they have to clear all the samples. The copyright department, that's a huge problem. Sometimes they're finding out who the heck wrote this song if their artist used a sample. So if I put two songwriters together, for example, and you guys went in the studio and then you sampled a piece of music that didn't belong to you, but it was such a killer record, I would have to get clearance from those original composers on that sample piece of music. And it's a big headache is what it is. But it can sometimes be very, very creative and wonderful. There's a finance department, there's a legal and business affairs department, there's the royalty department, they collect all the royalties, they prepare the statements for the songwriter. So that's a very interesting job, working at a music publishing company with all those different areas. There's the creative side and, of course, the very heavy administrative side to music publishing. But it's a very interesting business. You may or may not know this, but a song, if you look at a song, it's kind of like a pie. A song is split into two parts. So you have your writer side and then you have your publisher side. So if a song is 100%, you've got 50% writer share, 50% publisher share to equal 100% total song share. If you have two songwriters, let's say, they're 25% writer, 25% writer, and then this writer's 25% also becomes his 25% publishing company, And then my 25% becomes my 25% publishing company, again, to total 100%. And this equation is key because this equation is what goes around the world and how everything is administered by this 100% pie that we split up, and we're constantly splitting up. Now, it sounds easy when I'm splitting, if I write a song by myself, I'm 50% songwriter, 50% publisher, no problem. But, you write with another writer, okay, it's 25, 25, 25, 25, no problem. But where it gets complicated is when you start to co-write with other people, and not just 2 people, but 4 people, and maybe 6 people. I don't know how many songwriters does it take to write a song? I don't know, but sometimes it takes a lot. And each of them might have co-publishing deals. So where they publish half and this one publishes the other. I once did some administration on a song. I am not kidding you. There were 47 entities. 47 entities. Some of them were 0.08%, very small. The reason was there were 4 writers, and then there was a big sample, and the sample had 4 writers, and then they all had like these co-publishing deals. It was just crazy and insane, and that's why, it keeps people in business. That's all I can say. It's complicated, but learning that, that's a whole lesson in itself. The whole songwriting pie and how to get the splits to work and registering them properly is a whole art in itself, and that's what your music publisher will do. Let me talk a little bit about Performing Rights Organization, your PRO. That's another spoke, because this is a wonderful person that could be, the person that sort of launches your career. I worked at a PRO for many years, and I spent a lot of time working very creatively with my SESAC Songwriter affiliates. And ways that I would create business for them is that from the very beginning, like doing a showcase, doing a really great key showcase like at the South by Southwest Music Festival, where I would invite A&R people, I would invite music publishers, I would invite people to see them in the hopes that they would say, ooh, they've got it, let's sign them. So your PRO person can be really a great help in your career. And also, it's someone you can meet early in your career without having the record label, the publishing, whatever. You can meet them at this point in your career. My suggestion is, you meet them once you've got some beautiful music that you're really proud of, that's when you should go meet them. Meet them because you want them to be a little bit impressed, so that you make an impression so that they maybe can do something for you. If you're at such a beginner stage of your career, there's nothing they can really do for you other than say, go to this workshop. But if you really are asking, when you're ready to ask for help, you got to have something to bring to the table. And that's good music or good performance, good songs. You don't even have to write the songs yourself. I mean, if you're an artist, at least a real gift is knowing how to find great songs, or knowing how to interpret great songs, or finding great old songs and you want to re-record them yourself. So, and then on the creative side, and this is actually very important up here, that was sort of the business side. Let's move into the creative side of the artist, and that is the roles of your producer, the roles of your collaborators, your fellow songwriters. And then on the studio side, and you guys know this more than I do, the engineers, the assistant engineers, the mix engineers, the remixers, the session coordinator. Someone's got to organize all these SAG and AFTRA contracts. Someone's got to look after the budgets. Then you got to hire the musicians. The musicians are another key part in the creative aspect of an artist's career. They have different types of musicians. They have musicians just for the studio, and they've got musicians who go on the road with them. They're not always the same. Generally, they're not the same. Usually, you have touring musicians, and then you have studio musicians. And of course, you need a great studio manager, right? Or an assistant manager. The studio technicians that keeps all this gear up to date and well oiled. And equipment rentals is another whole interesting area of the studio world. Sometimes they are renting equipment or renting equipment for themselves for clients, or renting the equipment they own to other clients. But I know that you guys know all about this studio stuff because that's your thing. And then you have in our new world the digital service providers. Your Spotify, Tidal, Apple, even YouTube too is another internet service that provides music. Those companies also hire music industry people. They're bringing in music industry experts because they need them. They need them to speak the language. They need them to really, they need licensing experts. They need people who really know music publishing. So like they have a head of music publishing at Spotify who oversees all the licenses and makes sure that everything is sort of in order in that way. They have data specialists that organize all the data that comes in. They have a creative services department. They're creating very interesting tools online, by the way. How many of you create your own music? Excellent. Have you ever put it up on Spotify?
SoundCloud.
On SoundCloud. Have you ever looked at the Spotify? They have these very interesting tools for users. And they're not advertising it just yet. I don't mean they're not making a big thing about it, but there's wonderful tools online like on how you can launch your music more successfully on Spotify independently. Apple, Spotify, Pandora, they all have these new tools that are very interesting. And another really cool job would be the music programmer. And they have music programmers for every genre. So all the different genres have music. They're programmers that are listening to the music, following the trends, getting input from music promoters naturally, and putting the music out there for the public to listen to. So that's a really huge, huge thing. I mean, there's a lot more roles I'm sure that I have forgotten, but at this point your wheel should be pretty filled up and should look like this with all these different roles on them, just to give you an idea of what your opportunities are in our business. I mean, this is a really exciting industry with so many. I didn't even touch on the whole touring part of it. Your tour manager, that's a whole other story. Your tour manager, the person that collects the money at the end of the day, and all the people that go on the road with you. The whole touring business is a completely different subject in itself. But there's a lot to be done, in the music industry. So people will say to you, what is a music business? It's like, well, it's this. I mean, it's vast. And it's much bigger than you think it is. And it's getting bigger and bigger as we speak with all these online services being available. And there's more music than ever being heard now. So how do we make this music make money? I mean, it's one thing to make music, but if you don't make any money off of it, well, you try to monetize it the best that you can. A lot of people monetize their music on YouTube. A little easier said than done. Not everybody has success at it. But there's all sorts of information online about monetizing your music online. And some people are very successful at it. One of the key things about monetizing is tagging. Our whole business, one of the biggest conversations that we have in our business is data. How do we get all the data? I'm sure you guys are starting to talk about implementing the data on your masters here and getting all of everything, all the writers and publisher information at the mastering level. That's such a key thing. It's controversial because some artists don't want to reveal that information before the records are out. But I know it's a big push for the Recording Academy. I know to get this information stored in a place that is safe and a place that's available for users to be able to contact the creators so that they can pay them. That's the biggest problem that we have in our music industry now, is that it's not that people don't want to really necessarily pay. It's not like they're trying to steal music. It's just they don't know who to pay. And what's so complicated about our business, particularly in the United States, is that the performing rights organizations, well, we have 4 of them in the United States. Most countries only have 1. Let me go back to performing rights organizations just to remind you what a PRO. Does you guys know what a PRO does? Let me tell you what a PRO does. A performing rights organization collects royalties for songwriters and music publishers. Just for the songwriters and music publishers. This is called the performance right, the songwriter and publisher right of the copyright. There are two copyrights, actually. There's your sound recording, and then there's your songwriting rights. It's called a PA form in the Copyright Office. Performing art is what they is, but it's really for songwriters and music publishers on one side, and the other copyright is the record labels and the artists. It's the SR, the sound recording. We're talking specifically about this performing art copyright, this songwriter and music publisher copyright. This is the one that is registered at ASCAP, BMI, or SESAC. When you join a performing rights organization, when you have a body of work and you're ready to join a PRO, you set up your publishing company, you clear your name, and you sign up. And it's very simple. You know, sometimes some of them don't even charge anything. And you sign up and you register your works. That's key. If you don't register your songs, you won't get paid. And I can't tell you how many big artists I have worked with that never register their songs. They forgot. Thought someone else was doing it. Especially the ones that are self-published. I mean, if you're going to self-publish, it's one thing, but publish. You know, you got to do it. You got to what does it mean to publish? Put it out there. You got to register the songs with the performing rights organizations. They have all sorts of online tools. You can do it on an app. You register your song with the proper percentages, 50%, 50%, 25, 25, whatever your percentages are. And you register your songs, and then you're cool. You're in the system. So you hope that everything will work wonderfully. And what happens is ASCAP, BMI, SESAC, GMR, they are the PROs that collect the royalties on behalf of songwriters and publishers. ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC license every single radio station in America. You know how many radio stations there are? 11,000. 11,000 radio stations that they license and collect royalties on. Generally, it's a blanket license. And that's why there's so much competition, and they sell their licenses based on the market share. So that's why SESAC, when I worked there, we were always trying to get bigger artists because it made us look like we had a bigger market share. Because that's really how the negotiation works. It's on market share. ASCAP and BMI both represent about 600,000 songwriters each. 600,000. I didn't even know there was that many. The truth is, probably only like 3 to 5% of them are actually working songwriters. The rest of them are just hobbyists, that sign up and don't do anything anymore. A very small percentage of them are actually working, making over $5,000. That's the reality of it all. But still, nonetheless, they have hundreds of thousands of because they want market share. So you've got your ASCAP catalog, your BMI catalog, your SESAC catalog. If you're a radio station, you got to have a license with all of them. If you don't have a license with all of them, you'll get sued. And they all have different, and like if you and I wrote a song together, you're at BMI and I'm at SESAC, doesn't matter. You got to have a license for both of us, for your share and for my share. And again, they're mostly sold as blanket licenses. So when they go out and license these radio stations, not just radio stations, they license television, they license cable TV, they license all of these background music services, they license all these internet services. They license shopping malls, restaurants, bars. Anytime you hear music performed publicly, that music is entitled for performance income. And these organizations actually do the collection. They have very sophisticated systems and ways to figure out how many times a song has been performed. And then they pay it directly to the songwriter and directly to the publisher. So you've got your PROs, and they're a very important player in this business. A new one came about, GMR, owned by Irving Azoff, like only 5 years ago. He's an interesting player. He's really kind of done some interesting things in the business. It's just different. Makes for a different thing. They're not a traditional performing rights organization. But I will say it's an interesting job, working for a PRO. There's a lot of interesting creative jobs. It is administrative, but there's a big creative part to it. So I would recommend you checking out a performing rights organization because it's a very interesting role to work in. Let's see. We talked about performing rights organizations. Oh, here's what I was going to tell you about PROs. I wanted to tell you that what's complicated about this whole data issue is that because there's three performing rights organizations, and we're competitors basically, and they don't want to share their databases with anybody. So this has been the problem in our business, is because we don't have one source of data. There's no, it's, if you want to get a song cleared, you got to call all 3 societies to get clearances on them, to get permission. You have to get permission to use music. But finding these copyright owners is just, it's like a nightmare. So to resolve that issue would be a huge feat in our business. And it's something that we talk about all the time in the industry. How do we resolve this, lack of data issue? How can we make it easier on the music user? These music users are, they're going faster than the speed of light. They're putting their product out there. They're like, sure, we will pay you, but who the hell do we pay? They don't know what to do. That's why they're in the trouble that they're in. And as you know, Spotify is being sued for tremendous amounts of money for copyright infringement. They didn't get the permissions, but they're saying, we tried. We want to pay you. We just don't know who the heck to pay. So
I have a question about that. Is that because they're a foreign country, and is this the Berne Convention issue?
No. It's because they can't find. They have a hard time finding the royalty owners, but there's a resolution to that, and I'll tell you the resolution. It's called the Music Modernization Act. This Music Modernization Act, the MMA, was just approved in the House Judiciary Committee last week, which is a very positive sign for us in the music industry, because basically what this is going to do is create a administration company like Sound Exchange. Do you guys know what Sound Exchange is? Well, Sound Exchange is a collection agent for digital royalties, but it's for the SR copyright. It's for the record labels and the artists. It has nothing to do with the songwriters. So the artists are being very fairly compensated. And in fact, Spotify has been paying their the artists and record labels 81% of every dollar, 81 cents, and paying the songwriters and publishers only 19 cents. So that's a big discrepancy, wouldn't you say? Like, why are the artists getting 81% and the songwriters and publishers only getting 19%? That doesn't make any sense. So we've been fighting this for some time. And Sound Exchange has been collecting those royalties, which has been amazing. And they do an amazing job. They've been around since the year 2000. So what the MMA is doing is introducing a new collection agent, similar to Sound Exchange. They're calling it Song Exchange for the time being. But it will be an organization that the DSPs will actually pay for. They're going to support and pay for this business. And this business is going to be a collection agent that holds all the rights. It's going to hold all of all the data from all the songs, and they're going to collect the royalties from the DSPs and give them to the songwriters and publishers. This is a huge, huge step in the right direction. And also you should know too, another very positive thing that's happened in the world of digital music is that just 2 months ago, the Copyright Royalty Tribunal, they got together and they determined that the songwriters deserved a break and that there was discrepancies. And they have given them a 40% increase in their royalties. This is huge. It's going to be over a 5-year period of time. But finally, songwriters and publishers are going to be getting paid a fair amount of money. It's going to take a minute. It's going to take 5 years to get back up to where the labels are, but at least they'll be getting compensated for their works. So the Music Modernization Act is actually a positive thing. We've got the raise from the CRB. We've got the Music Modernization Act that's going to create this new administration company. There's some other very interesting things that go in the Music Modernization Act that I think are very interesting. There's this crazy loophole. They call it the pre-1972 loophole, which denied digital compensation for song or artists who released music before 1972. I don't understand why. Do you know why?
No.
I don't know why
It was an
either.
arbitrary number they picked.
I think there was 72 was a copyright.
With the renewal of
Yes.
the extension
The
of
70-year.
Copyright Act,
Yes.
and there was a certain date that if you fell under that, then it was excluded.
That's it.
It was
That's it.
28 years plus 14.
That's it.
something.
It's tied into that.
Yeah.
You're right. And so that's the date. So think about the music of the pre-72. It's like all the Motown music. The music of the 50s and the 60s, that wasn't, they got gypped. It's like their music can be played on Pandora, but they're not getting a dime for it. It's like, what ridiculousness is that? So anyway, this is to close that loophole and allow those artists, no one disagrees, it's called the Classics Act, allow them their money. Here's another one that you guys will be interested in. There's also into this MMA is a bill that proposes, and everyone's in favor of this, that producers can get on the copyright. So that when you register with Sound Exchange to get the royalties for the label and artist side, the producer also has a line item there and can collect himself. Currently, a producer could collect, but they have to get permission from the artist.
But you need a letter of direction.
You need a letter of direction, and that is kind of...
Yeah, it's a drag.
It's a drag. It's touchy.
Because what you have to do, especially like in my case, you have to go to the label, and they're the ones who would give the permission, not even the artist, because they both have to sign off. So if you didn't do it when you initially did your contract, and who would have, because Sound Exchange didn't even exist 10 years ago or whatever. So now you have to retroactively go back, talk to the label. Definitely the person who signed the artist back in the day is no longer in the business. So you have to start from scratch with who are you, what are you doing, all that stuff. So it's yes, you can do it. So I actually have a letter of direction that I can provide for anybody if you're doing new contracts. All the new contracts I do, I make sure that that's in it, but you know.
Oh, you add it in your contract. Oh, that's smart.
I had it separate. Like
Yeah.
I have like a one-page contract,
Yeah.
a deal memo basically, and then I also have a letter of direction for
That's
Sound
smart.
Exchange. Because that's the only way, and you do it now
In the
before you
upfront.
have to go backwards. But the problem is when you go backwards, especially in this business, that everybody wants to keep their money and they don't want to give it to you.
Exactly, because I think that the money is supposed to actually come out of your pool of money. So like if I was the artist, for example, and you produced me 10 years ago and we had a hit, and you came to me and said, I want that Sound Exchange money, would you mind signing off? And I'd say, sure. Does that mean that I owe Sound Exchange all this back royalty? I think it does, doesn't it?
I think what it is I think now, and I don't know how it was, but I believe now it doesn't come out, like they still get their money, and this is in addition to, but you have to claim it.
Yeah.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
Now it's, that's what I think it is, but I'm not exactly sure, so. But it is a pain in the ass, that's for sure.
So it's good to just know that.
Even
this
if you're
is
a musician on a record,
Yeah.
you should get that letter of direction, because if you're a musician on a record, you would get paid through Sound Exchange,
Yeah.
not through ASCAP or BMI or anything, but you would still get from the sound
Yeah.
recording a portion of that,
Royalty
delivery
pool.
royalty pool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really key thing. I mean, it's very important. If you're an artist and you're putting out music and it's getting played online, you definitely want to sign up with Sound Exchange so that you can collect royalties on them.
I always say, like, this is a business of pennies, so you really need to get all your pennies, because it's really true. Before
Absolutely.
it wasn't like that at all. And you could, like, have artists, like she was talking about, that didn't file their publishing or whatever, because they were
Yeah.
making so much in royalties, it was not even like
Don't
a
even
thought.
think about it.
And then when the royalties went down, they're going, well, where else can I get money? Now I should, so that's the difference. So that's why you want to try to get, and the best time to do any deal with anybody is when you first start.
Yeah.
Not when the song's done, because then it sounds great. You want to do it before it all starts, when everybody needs each other, and then that's when you want to make your deals, not after the fact.
Hear, hear. So, anyway, this Music Modernization Act, it goes for a vote next week. And it goes for a vote in Congress next week, and on May 15th it goes to the Senate. And then after that it goes to President Trump to sign off. And we cross our fingers that he signs off on it. Right. And then it will be. And it will be a very positive thing, and it'll be a really, it's been something we've been working on in our industry for a long time, but we finally have come together, as an industry, which is not, we don't always have, the same thoughts on things, but we have come together for this, and it's going to be a very good thing. The Music Modernization Act, and if you are interested in getting involved, we could do a whole class on advocacy, but you could call your local congressman where you vote and say, would you please support the Music Modernization Act? I'm a musician. I'm going to Montgomery Community College, And I am taking music, and I want this to be my life, my life's work. I really love this business. I need you to please support this MMA Act for me as your constituent, but for everybody in music.
Linda, can we do a little Q&A real quick?
Oh, yes.
Before we do that, there was one other issue. There were two hot button issues you were going to talk about.
Yes.
One had to do with
You did the MMA.
Women.
the business.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about another real hot button issue, and that is gender inequality in the music industry, which really started with this big Annenberg study about inclusion. It started in the film industry, where they recognized there was tremendous discrepancies between men and women in the film industry. Well, the Annenberg study, which came out of University of California, studied the music business, and they came up with some staggering statistics. In an analysis of the top 600 songs from 2012 to 17, 6-year study, a study found that of 1,239 performing artists, 22% of them were women. Of the 2,700 songwriters, only 12% of them were women. Female producers, the people most responsible for the sound of pop music, even rarer, 2% in a subset of 300 songs across the same period, 2%. So when it comes to women's ability to contribute and lead, they're being shut out of the process. It does far better with racial and ethnic diversity. Of the studies, 1,200 performing artists, 42% were from minority groups. But a vast, and then they started to study the Grammy Awards. A vast majority of the Grammy Awards go to men. Of 899 individuals who've been nominated for the last 6 Grammy ceremonies, 90% of them were men. 9.3% of them were women, and most of those were in the Best New Artist category. And in the world of songwriting, men dominate. 9 male songwriters, the studies found, have been responsible for almost 1/5 of the top songs in the last 6 years. So, it's an issue, right? It's been documented. This has been studied. It's being really studied even more. What are we doing about it? Well, a lot of the people in the music industry are pretty up in arms about this information, particularly about the inequality, the discrepancies in pay. Why is this female executive who does the same role as this male executive being paid 30% less? Why is that? So some companies are committed to making a change. And we're starting to see that because they're being sort of pressured to. But Atlantic Records has come out and said that they are going to go for a 50-50 equality in their staffing. 50% female, 50% male, and they're bringing the salaries up. So this is a big discussion that we're having in the music industry. We can get really deep into it. But just so you know, ladies, are you lady producers? Life could be very good for you, because I think there's going to be doors opening more for women, particularly in these positions here. We need more women producers, We really do. We need more. I don't know why it's such a, I speak to kids all the time, and it's predominantly guys that are in this business. And I don't really know why it is, on the technical side of things especially. Because women are certainly capable of doing it all. And then some, right? So anyway, I just wanted to share those things with you. But let's have some questions.
Some questions for Linda? Go ahead.
Yes.
Are you familiar with Creative Commons?
Not really.
I guess it's almost like
Well, it's a copyright. That's an easy way to copyright here.
Oh, the mailing?
Creative Commons copyright.
Where you send your...
What, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So it's a way you can, it's just a Creative Commons, you can put a blanket copyright and put your music out there immediately without having to file it with the
Right.
government. But if you put it out there and use it, and if somebody wants to use it for some kind of financial gain, then they have to get your permission.
Right. I was just gonna ask you your opinion on using something like that, or being a part of that. Would you hoping to try to maybe move somewhere, continue moving forward? Do you feel that could possibly be something that is a beneficial tool, or
why would it be a beneficial tool? Let me just get this straight. So when you want protection for your songs, copyright protection, meaning that no one else can steal them, there's verification that you actually are the original copyright owner. You file a copyright with the Copyright Office, copyright.gov. The problem with that is that it can be expensive. It's like $40 a song. There's ways that you can do a compilation of works, which is what I would recommend. You add an addendum to your copyright form, to your PA form. The songs of Linda, summer 2000, whatever. And you can put all your songs in there. And if any one of those songs becomes a hit or starts to really get activity, you can extract that from your addendum and re-register it as a separate entity. That's generally what most people do. I will tell you the truth about music publishers is that they do not copyright all of their works. They don't copyright them until they're actually out in the public, because otherwise it would cost them too much money, and it's cumbersome. It's expensive. I want to say it's $50 now. I don't remember per song.
I think it's 55 actually.
$55 a song.
But if you do it in a collective, you'd have to have the same contributing party. So in other words,
Right.
you couldn't do like 10 songs and have different writers on. It would have 10 songs. If it's Linda's summer of 2018, it's all Linda's music.
Correct.
You couldn't be on a co-write on one of those 10 songs and register it that way, because it would have to be the same contribution. And also, a copyright by the government protects you in case you get sued.
Right.
Like if you get sued and you have a copyright by the government, then you're entitled to lawyer fees. You're entitled to a couple things legally, because if someone sued you the wrong way and you defended it and won, then you would get their legal fees because you went through the right process of
Yeah.
the government to do that. You wouldn't do that if you did it. I don't know how your thing works, but I don't know. I'm not sure how that works, but
I'm still figuring it out too.
that's why the safest thing to always do is copyright the songs.
Exactly. If you've got a song that you're really pitching, and particularly in the beginning stages of your career, a song that you're really promoting, I would definitely copyright that. There's also something people do called the poor man's copyright, where they mail it to themselves.
Right. That'll keep you poor.
That'll keep you poor. I don't.
Don't ever do that, because you do that, you won't get any of what I just mentioned.
It doesn't say anything to you. Yeah.
You won't get your attorney's fees. You won't get anything, and that's why they call it a poor man's copyright, because you will stay poor.
Any other questions?
Any other questions
Yes,
for
here's
Linda?
one right here.
You're saying that some music publishers don't ever copyright some of their songs.
Right.
So if one of their songs did happen to become big and they tried to copyright it later on, could there be any complications with that?
Sure.
So like someone else could try to copyright it even or
Right. Yeah, and that's why there's a problem. But yes, absolutely, because that's what they look at first is when did you file the copyright? And if you filed it after the fact, it could be a complication for sure. They generally try to once they have got confirmation that the song has been released and is on the radio, that's when they'll copyright it. Otherwise, if they've got 25 writers on staff, each one of them are bringing in 25 songs, it could be a lot of money copyrighting songs that might not even fly.
so they just kind of wait till they
Yep.
release it then copyright.
To be honest, I mean, not really a well-known fact, but it's the truth. That's what happens.
I have a question about SESAC.
Yes.
I've been teaching a business class for 10 years. I talk about PROs, ASCAP, BMI, SESAC. There's always the mystery, because it's like the Mason, so you got to be asked.
Yeah.
Him, right? But in the last few years, I've seen their profile just like jump up. When I first started in 2006 teaching, it was like mostly gospel. Not a lot of major players. Now that's like they have some major, just like in the last few years, major signing. I think they bought Harry Fox.
Yes.
And Blackstone bought them as well. So it seems like they're on the rise. They had that proprietary tracking system. So what's going on with SESAC? Are they on the way up?
I think
BMI ASCAP.
I think that SESAC is definitely on the way up. I think they're kind of stuck. If you want to know the truth, I mean, they've had some troubles. It's an independent company, an independent PRO. They are a profit-making company. They're able to have a lot more, they're able to be very agile. They can maneuver, and they were able to, because they didn't have to abide by the consent decrees, that they were able to license for any amount that they wanted to license. And the way that we would license was by market share and by signing big writers. And that was my role, was trying to sign big writers. And like Zac Brown was one of the big writers that I brought in. We had Neil Diamond, we had Bob Dylan, we had some major catalogs. We signed Kesha. Names that sort of helped build the company up. And then, yes, they bought the Harry Fox agency, and it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen with Harry Fox, because with this MMA, this
Right, that might take them out of business.
it might take them out of business.
Yeah, because they're the ones who always did the right.
Because
that was, as I understand, because I tell my class at Harry Fox, if you want to do a cover song, you have to license it. And that was a place where you could go and find who the
Yeah.
authors were and pay her 9 cents or
Right.
song. And so that might.
Yeah, that might change, because this new MMA is really the, it's the mechanical portion of the digital right, and they're going to have this new agency, which ironically is being spearheaded by the National Music Publishers Association, who sold Harry Fox to SESAC. So they sold it to SESAC, like, here, you take it, we don't want it.
Yeah, smart move.
And then we're doing something else. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, maybe, SESAC, I think their interest in buying Fox was not necessarily to get into the mechanical licensing world, but they were more interested in the data.
Okay.
It's like a data thing, like owning more data so that they could become, I think they wanted to become what the MMA is going to do, that song exchange company that I'm talking about. I think they really wanted to be something like that. But that's going to live in the Copyright Office. And I just to speculate, I think maybe they'll merge, because Fox still has so many elements to it that could be attractive, namely the database of this the repertory, the whole back repertory. A lot of music publishers do their own mechanical licensing now, so it's not, Harry Fox isn't the only game in town.
Right.
Big game, the biggest one for mechanicals, which there's mechanical sales have declined dramatically.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well,
Any
my
other
students, that good news and bad news. The good news is we're getting this information now. The bad news is you'll have to buy a new business book next semester.
That's right.
If the law changes, that's all.
That's true.
That's going to be a whole new thing. That's
Okay.
crazy. Man, this is awesome.
Any more questions for Linda? Thank you, Linda,
Wait, here's
very
one.
much. Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to ask if you knew anything about the creative departments behind major labels and whatnot, and how art and style and all that stuff for an artist. How is that kind of conjunction in terms of rights for label and licensing for that, or copyright protection for that?
Copyright protection for styling?
For art
Artwork?
behind.
Well, artwork is copyrightable. That's definitely copyrightable. We're talking about all these copyright laws. It's not just for music. We're helping the whole IP world. Anyone that does creative works, photographers. You think we have it bad? Photographers have it worse. Videographers. Their music is just being ripped off. So, well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.